Video, I am continuing from Intro to Illustrator Part 1 and just going over a few more basic tools and tricks to one of my favorite pieces of software. So watch the first video first because, and it's obvious, let's watch the first video first. I build on some of the stuff that we did there. So I'm going back to the text tool. I'm going to type out some letters. I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard. I'm going to scale it up holding shift, and then I'm going to pick a font. This video kind of goes with a product we do in class called One Letter, One Number, One Font, but it's just the very basics of Illustrator. Let's use Times New Roman. Such an underrated font. I'm going to go ahead and right-click Create Outline, so it's a shape now. Now, first new trick or tool is the grid. Illustrator comes with a grid that we can use to help geometrically arrange and make perfect our designs. If we go up to View, we have some functions down here called show grid and snap to grid. The hotkeys are command the apostrophe, command shift the apostrophe. If we show grid, we have this grid here. Now this is totally for reference purposes, and what that means is that if I were to print this document or if I were to save it, that grid would not exist. It's purely just for me as the designer. What I can also do is that other function view snap to grid, and now if I move my piece, if I zoom in tool, command plus, command minus zooms in and out. Or I like to hit Z on the keyboard, which activates the magnifying glass tool, and that lets me click and drag. It's like a scrubby zoom. It's pretty cool. Now, show grid, snap to grid lets me click and drag this, and you see it moving at specific increments of the grid. Useful if you're trying to make things geometrically perfect. I'm going to command apostrophe, command shift apostrophe to turn those off. And then I'm going to start playing with these shapes more. We learned about alt dragging. We learned about command D, command 0, full screens, or fits my document to my screen. Let's see here. What else could I teach about in this video? If I alt drag this piece down, we can rotate. We might know that. But if I hold shift on rotate, it rotates at perfect 45-degree angles. Some other way to rotate, if I go to Effect, Distort and Transform, and then Transform, there it is. Distort and Transform, Transform. I have this whole really cool window that opens up, which lets me move, scale, or rotate at perfect angles. But the cool thing here is this copies. Let's check Preview to make sure that we see what we're doing. I'm going to say we rotate at 30 degrees, because 30 degrees is a perfect increment of 360. And then I'm going to use the arrow keys to start creating more copies. And if you look, I'm not creating like a circle from them. I'm going to stop at 11. This little guy right here shows what anchor point, where it's rotating around. So right now it's rotating around the middle, but if I have it rotate around the bottom, come on, buddy, there it is. Check that out. It is now like creating this effect where it creates 11 copies of my original shape at 30-degree increments. You get the picture. It's pretty cool. Let's see what it looks like from the top. And I have different things that I can play with. Now, right now, this still sees the letter as just a shape with an effect on it, just one shape with an effect on it. If I go up to Object, Expand Appearance, that is going to create them all into shapes. Now, here's another function that I don't think I even covered in the basic video, or in part 1. If I right-click, I can ungroup these. And I don't think I covered grouping before. So right now, these 6 T's up here are all individual shapes. But if I select them all, right-click group, the hotkey is Command G. Now, anytime I click on one, it selects them all at the same time. Really easy to just manage stuff around. So I'm going to alt-drag the group, and I can rotate the group, or I can right-click, transform, and start doing some other cool stuff like reflecting. So I'm going to right-click, transform, reflect, and now I can reflect the group over the horizontal or vertical axis. All cool ways of just making more basic shapes in Illustrator. So maybe we could like put this down here. Now I've got a pattern forming. This is kind of cool. I'm trying to keep this under 5 minutes. I'm about 5 minutes. Let's do one more technique, or one more basic thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this all. I'm going to make it all a dark gray. Now, I want to say that my T's slowly fade to lighter as they go down. The long way around would be to go through and like selecting each one, thinking if it's the right gray. What I could do otherwise is I could just select them all, change all their color, hold shift, and if I click on something that is selected while holding shift, it deselects it. So like if you hold shift and click on multiple objects, you can select multiple objects. If you hold shift and click on things already selected, that deselects. So if I hold shift and click on this group, deselects that group, and now I can change the rest. Once again, hold shift, deselect it, and keep going. Easy way around some things. All right, I don't want to go too long with these basic Illustrator videos, so that would probably be all. We covered rotation, we covered that effect, the rotation effect. We covered the grid and showing grid and snapping the grid. And now we covered some cool basic ways of selecting and deselecting and grouping. Thanks for tuning in.